Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to be covering Kled in a couple different sections. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name is Lofit. I do educational content. I do tip video, guide video. If you're curious about my experience, I am a D4, D3 player and mostly play mid, top, and support, and I absolutely love this champion, so I want to introduce you to him if you haven't played him before. And as always, guys, if you have any questions for me, I'd love to help you out. I'm going to put a link to my Twitch and my Discord if you want to send me messages directly, or if you just want to leave a comment down below with any questions. I love to help out low elo players, kind of just what my whole channel revolves around. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the video. And again, guys, if you have your own tips, if you play a lot of Kled yourself, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. And then if you want to help out people as well, I'd love to see those kind of comments. So that'll do it. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's get into the early game and laning tips that I can give you with Kled. With the first play being shown on screen, I would like to talk about slow pushing. It's extremely important. What it will do is build up a large wave, and that you can do this rather early. Just make sure that you are auto-attacking more than your enemy and that you are slowly getting the minion wave advantage, not too quickly or else it will crash too early. How you want to play this out is junglers always look to gank top at level 3 when they start on the bottom of the map. This usually happens in low elo because they want the bot lane to leash for them. So with the slow push, you're able to get a large minion wave advantage. People are always going to underestimate minions in low elo, and they will look to gank you nonetheless because they see a 2v1. How Kled shines in this environment is that he has a outplay potential with his remount mechanic. So baiting out these ganks is going to be extremely beneficial. One, you're obviously going to get a kill or two if you play correctly, and two, you're taking the pressure off your team by putting the enemy jungler behind by having a unsuccessful gank. This is going to be working best when your enemy laner is a poor early game laning champion, similar to the Nasus. Alright, and that is the first tip. The second one will be your rune choice. It is extremely important to look at the enemy team comp. Do not just blindly pick the same runes over and over again. If you're playing against something like a Teemo, it is going to be very beneficial for you to take a press the attack if there are not too many tanks on the enemy team, and as well as sudden impact. What this is going to do for you is provide you with a lot of early game potential, and you don't really fall off as hard because you do not have too many hard targets that are going to be tanky, and that is where Conquer comes in. If they have a tanky top jungle and maybe even a support, you are going to be wanting to look into the Conquer rune. It is going to be very good on Kled, stacked up pretty quickly on his W, and it is just going to be an overall great rune choice with the extra healing. Next up, I want to talk about trading with W. It can be consumed by minions, so be very careful on how you use it. A well-adjusted player is going to see when you use it and look for an all-in after that because they know you are lacking in power. So keep these things in mind when you are looking to lane on Kled. And if you have any questions or want to add your own tips, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Okay, and let's get right into mid-game and roaming potential with Kled. This is an extremely strong part of Kled's game. In my opinion, this is where Kled can shine the heaviest, is his mid-game. I think it's extremely just extremely a strong spot for Kled, just due to his kit being ability based. He isn't going to scale as well as something like Tryndamere, but this is really where he can do quite a bit of damage. So how you want to take advantage of this: you should be winning most of your lanes when you're playing Kled, particularly with Ignite Press the Attack. So you're going to have lane priority. What do you do with lane priority? You look for roams and you look to control the enemy jungler. You look to control the enemy objective in your area. How you're going to do this is by placing deep wards, also looking to help your jungler and pinging the scuttle. The jungler will absolutely love you if they see you preemptively coming down to help him ensure this. And what also this is going to do is it is going to provide with a lot, it's going to provide a lot of skirmish opportunities where Kled can really shine. What is really great with Kled is he is able to absorb a lot of damage and has a pretty much a anti-burst mechanic in his dismount where he is untargetable when he is dismounting. So you usually want to be the first one that is being targeted, and obviously look for the remount in your fights. People really they do not like going on Kled as a first target, particularly with a jungler that is going to be a lower level than you. So you want to understand that you should probably be the one going in first. Also, with your lane bully status and being able to control most of the lane, you should be first on those roams, particularly with your ultimate. This is where you want to start abusing it quite a bit if the enemy is being very passive and not giving you any all-in potential up in the top lane. So always look to assist your jungler. What this is going to allow is you're going to put your jungler ahead and the enemy jungler behind, which is so crucial in the game of League of Legends because the junglers affect the entire map. So you really want to help him out as much as possible in the mid game. The reason why the mid game is really strong, I think, if you have a Tiamat, you can just start absolutely crushing people with your rather large damage ratios. Also, in the mid-game skirmishes, you should always be looking to roam into the mid lane with your ult. Putting them behind is going to be your second chance. Also, with your really strong point that you're going to have in the mid lane, the last thing you want to do is just keep looking for kills over and over again against the enemy top laner if they are only worth a little bit of gold and you are just getting distracted being the strongest person on your team. How you want to play this out is by looking for objectives. You do not really want to switch lanes with your bot lane if you do not have your tower down yet. You want to just continuously put the enemy jungler and the top laner in a poor position and set your team up for just a very good point. Also, when you have the lane push in, you can look to take enemy CS, you can look to take enemy jungle camps. It is just really, the world is your oyster at this point. I cannot stress this enough. This is really where you want to spread the lead that you should be able to get most of the time when you are laning with Kled. If you have any questions on this section, please reach out. I can help you with anything you have. You can just comment down below. Okay, and let's get into everyone's favorite part, the late game and team fighting situation with Kled. Now, I get this question very commonly, so I'm just going to go over a very basic top lane pattern that you can look to do in the late game without dropping too much CS. How you want to play this out is by clearing your lane out past the river point and then looking to join your team and rinse and repeat. The reason why you want to push it past the halfway point of the river, that means that the lane will always push back to you and they will not be able to freeze you out. So make sure to ping your team when you are leaving to push the lane, and make sure to ping in when you are looking for a flank engage after you have finished clearing your wave. This is going to also set up very good flanking opportunities for yourself, and that is just a huge part of Kled's kit if you are able to bypass the front lines in certain situations. All right, next up, how you want to look to play out team fights is the highest value target that you can get to effectively without being CC'd. This is going to involve a lot of you pressing tab and checking out what items the enemy team has. Sometimes there might be a higher value target with a lot less kills that might not be as obvious. For example, a Pantheon that is 10 and 3 really did well in the early game, but is pretty weak and falling off now at 30 or 40 minutes. And they might have a Tristana that's maybe 1 and 1, but has 200 CS, 250 CS, and is really strong. So please identify your target first. Do not just go in blind and improvise. It will help you out a bit by just kind of being like, what is my objective of this team fight? Who should I be focusing and how can I accomplish that? Next up, I want to talk about basic team fighting with Kled, and that is, do I need to be a diver or does my team win front-to-back team fights? How you will know this is if your team has a very heavy front line with extremely strong backline damage. Usually people that are able to win front-to-back team fights are the team that are going to have more gold and more tanks with something like a Caitlyn or a Vayne in the backline and a Xerath, things that need to be protected. How you want to play those out is by just engaging and absorbing as much as possible in the front line and dealing damage to their tanks with Kled's Tank Shred and common build having Black Cleaver, and if they have a lot of tanks, it is going to be good to have Conqueror, so this is going to play out quite well for yourself. When you know that you need to dive, it's going to be pretty obvious. Usually this means that you're the person with a lot of resources on your team, your backline isn't going to damage the enemy backline, and this is when you need to go on high value targets. If you look at the LCS, a lot of their team fights end up being front to back team fights, because those are just the easiest ones to control. So sometimes if maybe you lost the previous team fight, you might need to cause a little bit of chaos in their backline, but you do not want to overextend and get bursted out when you can already win the front and back team fights. Next up, I want to talk about your builds and how you can really abuse people in team fights and really just make a sturdy front line. You can abuse the remount mechanic, obviously. Lifesteal is going to be pretty good with your high AD scalings, and something like a Death's Dance, there we go, and a GA is going to buy an extreme amount of time for your team and is going to absorb a lot of high impact abilities. So you want to keep this in mind when you are playing Kled, and maybe it's the late game where you're not as strong as you were in the mid game, and you can just really absorb a lot for your team, which will be quite beneficial. Obviously, when you have a dive buddy, say you have a Kha'Zix that is coming out of the jungle and is really strong, you want to augment his dives. If you only have frontline, you might want to consider just playing a front to back team fight. So get used to that and kind of see what is more effective. Next up, I want to talk about split pushing versus team fights. If you're extremely far ahead and your enemy is just not, or your allies are just doing very bad, sometimes you just want to look for split pushing. He has decent tower taking with the increased attack speed he gets from his W, on top of the fact that he gets an extra empowered auto that is going to do more damage than your regular auto on the tower, and with his great 1v1 potential and escape ability with his ultimate, he can make for a decent split pusher. Obviously, he cannot stack up to something like Tryndamere, but keep this in mind that he is not only a team fighter, he is not only a split pusher, he is a bit of a hybrid. All right, now we'll wrap up all my tips for Kled. Thanks a bunch for sticking around, guys, and as always, take it easy.